My parents sent me away when I was 15. They said it was to fix me. They told me wilderness camp would teach me discipline. Instead, it taught me how to pretend, how to smile when I was dying inside, how to wait. For 10 years, I waited, and now that I am back, they think I am here to invest in their future, but I am not here to build anything. I am here to burn it all down. This is Riley Connors signing off for now, but I will be back. And when I am, I will bring the whole truth with me. That was how I ended my first draft. But a story like this cannot end with a simple signing off. Because the days that followed that night were the hardest of my life. And I need to tell you about them. I need to tell you what happened when I sat across from my parents at that dinner table, pretending to be the daughter they wanted. I need to tell you about the moment my mother looked into my eyes and asked me if I was happy. And I need to tell you about the phone call that changed everything. So let me go back. Let me take you to that dinner. My mother's pot roast was dry. It had always been dry. She was not a good cook, but she pretended she was. She set the table with her good china, the one with the gold trim that could not go in the dishwasher. She lit candles. She put out a centerpiece of fresh flowers. Everything had to be perfect. That was my mother. Sarah Connors, queen of appearances. My father carved the roast with the precision of a surgeon. He had been a lawyer for 30 years. He treated everything like a contract, even dinner. Ethan was there too, my perfect brother. He had flown in from San Francisco for the weekend. He was a cardiologist now. He had a wife named Priya and a baby girl named Maya. They lived in a house with a yard and a dog. Ethan had never been sent to a wilderness camp. Ethan had never had his door removed. Ethan had never screamed into the Utah dust as his parents drove away. Ethan was the son they wished I could have been. But that night, Ethan looked tired. He had dark circles under his eyes. Priya was home with Maya, who had a fever. Ethan had come alone. He hugged me when I walked in. He said, "Hey, little sister, you look good." I said, "You look tired." He shrugged and said, "Cardiology keeps you busy." I wanted to tell him the truth. I wanted to say, "Ethan, I am going to destroy our parents. I am going to take their money and their reputation and their peace of mind. And I need you to understand why." But I did not say that, because Ethan was not ready to hear it. He had spent his whole life seeing our parents as heroes. He did not know about the camp. He did not know about Tasha or Megan or Caleb. He did not know that our father had pried my fingers off a car door while I begged. I had never told him, and I was not sure if I ever would. We sat down to eat. My mother said grace. She thanked God for our family, for our health, for our success. She did not thank God for my survival. She did not thank God that I had not killed myself in that desert. I had thought about it. Many times. I never told anyone that either. But at night, in the tent, when the wind howled through the canvas, I used to imagine walking into the desert and never coming back. The only thing that stopped me was the thought that my parents would probably just tell everyone I ran away. They would make it my fault. Even my death would have been my fault. My father raised his glass. He said to Riley, our successful daughter, to her brilliant idea. I raised my glass too. I said to family. My mother beamed. Ethan clinked his glass against mine. He said, "I am proud of you, Riley. You have come a long way." I smiled. I said, "Thank you, Ethan. You have no idea." Then my mother asked the question, the one I had been dreading. She put down her fork and looked at me with her soft, sad eyes. She said, "Riley, honey, are you happy? I mean truly happy, because you seem different lately. More distant. I worry about you." My heart stopped. For a moment, I thought she knew. I thought someone had told her about my plans, but then I realized she did not know. She was just being my mother, the woman who sent me away, the woman who never apologized, the woman who somehow still believed she loved me. That was the most confusing part. I think my mother really did love me. In her own broken, selfish, fearful way, she loved the idea of me, the daughter who got straight A's and wore pastel sweaters and never talked back. She did not love the real me, the purple-haired, angry, scared girl who just wanted to be heard. But she thought she loved me, and that made everything harder. I looked at her across the table. The candle light flickered on her face. She was 62 now. She had wrinkles around her eyes. Her hands shook a little when she reached for her wine glass. She was not a monster. She was just a woman who had made a terrible choice and then spent 10 years convincing herself it was the right one. I said, "I am happy, Mom. Really, I have a good job." Good friends, a nice apartment. I am in therapy. I am doing the work. She said, therapy? Why do you need therapy? My father looked up. Ethan shifted in his seat. The room got very quiet. I said, because of the camp, Mom, because of Summit Quest. My mother's face went pale. She said, but that was so long ago. And it helped you. You said so yourself. You wrote us letters. You thanked us. I took a breath. I had promised myself I would not do this. Not yet. Not before the plan was finished. But the words came out anyway. I said, Mom, I wrote those letters because I had to. Because if I did not, I would have stayed at level 1 forever. I would have been stuck in that desert. I wrote what they told me to write. I apologized for things I never did. I said I was broken when I was not. I lied. Every single word was a lie. My mother put her hand over her mouth. My father set down his knife. Ethan stared at me with wide eyes. My father said, Riley, we did what we thought was best. You were out of control, you were drinking, you were sneaking out, we were scared. I said I was 15. I had 2 beers at a party. That is not out of control. That is a teenager. You took my door, you took my phone, you took my privacy. And then you sent me to a place where they made me do push-ups until I passed out. Where they left a 14-year-old girl on the ground because she could not do more push-ups. Where they held a girl down for 6 hours because she tried to run away from the stepfather who raped her. Do you know about Tasha, Dad? Do you know her name? My father's jaw tightened. He said, I do not know who Tasha is. I said, exactly. You do not know, you never asked. You signed the papers and you drove away and you never asked what happened to me or to any of those other kids. You just assumed it worked, because I came home quiet. Because I stopped fighting. That was not healing, Dad. That was breaking. You sent me to be broken. My mother started to cry. She said, we love you. We have always loved you. We made a mistake. We are sorry. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to fall into her arms and forgive everything. But I could not, because her apology was too late, and it was not enough. She was sorry that I was hurting. She was not sorry for what she did. There is a difference. I stood up. I said, I have to go. Ethan said, Riley, wait, please, sit down, let's talk about this. I looked at my brother. He had no idea. He had been at Stanford. He had been building his perfect life. He had never once asked me about the camp. He had never once wondered why I flinched when someone touched my shoulder. Why I could not sleep with the door closed. Why I hoarded food in my dorm room like I was afraid it would be taken away. He had not known. But he had not asked either. I said, Ethan, I love you. But you do not get to tell me to sit down. You do not get to tell me to be calm. You were not there. You do not know. I grabbed my jacket and walked out. The door slammed behind me. The night air was cold. I stood on the front porch of my parents' beautiful house, the house with the perfect lawn and the perfect Christmas cards, and I shook. Not from cold, from rage. From years and years of swallowed rage finally breaking through. I got in my car and drove back to Seattle. I cried the whole way, 3 hours of crying. I had not cried like that since I was 15. When I got home, I collapsed on my bed and stared at the ceiling. My phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. He said, I am sorry I did not ask. I am sorry I did not see. Can we talk, just us, please? I did not answer. Not because I was angry at Ethan. I was angry at myself, because in my plan, I had not accounted for this. I had not accounted for my mother's tears, for my father's tight jaw, for the possibility that they might actually feel something, that they might actually be sorry, even if their sorry was too small and too late. That made everything more complicated. Because if they were monsters, I could destroy them without guilt. But if they were just flawed, frightened people who made a terrible mistake, then my revenge was not justice. It was just cruelty, and I did not want to be cruel. I wanted to be right. I woke up to sunlight streaming through my window. My phone had 17 messages, 6 from my mother, 4 from my father, 7 from Ethan. I read Ethan's first. He wrote, Riley, I talked to Mom and Dad last night after you left. They told me everything. Well, they told me their version. I want to hear yours. I am driving to Seattle today. I will be there by noon. Please text me your address. I texted him my address. Then I called Dr. Patel. She answered on the second ring. I told her what happened. I told her about the dinner, about the apology, about the crying in the car. She listened. She always listened. When I finished, she said, Riley, revenge is a heavy word. It feels good in the moment. But it is not the same as healing. You have to ask yourself, Do you want to hurt your parents, or do you want to be free? Sometimes those are the same thing, but sometimes they are not. I said I do not know anymore. She said, that is okay. You do not have to know right now. Talk to your brother. He loves you. Let him in. Ethan arrived at noon exactly. He had always been punctual. He knocked on my apartment door holding a bag of bagels and a coffee for me. He looked terrible. His eyes were red. He had not slept. He said, can I come in? I said, yes. He sat on my couch. I sat across from him. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said, tell me everything, from the beginning, do not leave anything out. So I did. I told him about the morning my mother woke me up at 5 a.m., about the drive to Utah, about the gravel lot and the khaki men and the sign that said building character through challenge. I told him about Carrie, the guide who made us do push-ups in the dark, about Megan, the girl who passed out, about Tasha, the girl who had been raped by her stepfather, about the reflection sits, the lost meals, the forced apologies. I told him about the helicopter therapist who never listened, about the level system, about the letters I wrote that were all lies, about the night I thought about walking into the desert and never coming back. Ethan listened. He did not interrupt. He did not defend our parents. He just listened. When I finished, he was crying. I had never seen my brother cry, not at our grandfather's funeral, not when he got into medical school, not when his daughter was born, but he was crying now. He said, I did not know. I swear to you, Riley, I did not know. Mom and Dad told me you were at a summer camp, a leadership camp. They said you wanted to go. They said it was your idea. I laughed. It was a bitter laugh. I said, of course they did. Of course they told you that. He said, I am so sorry. I am so sorry I was not there. I am sorry I did not protect you. I said, you were a kid too, Ethan. You were 18. You were in college. It was not your job to protect me. It was theirs, and they failed. He nodded. He wiped his eyes. He said, what are you going to do? I hesitated. I had not planned to tell Ethan about the revenge plan, but he was my brother, and he was crying, and I was tired of lying. I said, I am going to destroy Summit Quest, and I am going to take Mom and Dad's money to do it. I told him everything: the fake investment, the incident reports, the network of survivors, the lawsuits, the news outlet, the plan to name every parent who sent their child to that place, including Sarah and David Connors. Ethan listened. His face changed as I talked. At first he looked shocked, then sad, then finally something I did not expect. He looked relieved. He said, I want to help. I said, what? He said, I want to help you, not because I want revenge, because I want justice, and because I owe you. I have spent 10 years being the golden child. I have spent 10 years not asking questions. I have spent 10 years letting Mom and Dad tell me their version of everything. I am done with that. Tell me what to do. I stared at him. I said, you have a wife and a baby. If this goes public, your name will be in the news. You could lose patients. You could lose everything. He said, then I lose everything. But I will not lose my sister again. We hugged. It was the first real hug we had shared since we were children. I cried into his shoulder. He cried into my hair. We stayed like that for a long time. Ethan went back to San Francisco, but he kept in touch every day. He helped me organize the incident reports. He used his medical knowledge to identify patterns of abuse that a non-doctor might miss. He found evidence that at least 3 campers had been denied water to the point of heat stroke. He found records of extended reflection sits that lasted more than 12 hours in direct sunlight. He found a note about a girl named Chloe, the redhead I had spoken to in the tent, who had been put in restraints for crying too loudly. That was the same Chloe who had emailed me, the one who said she almost gave up. I called my lawyer. Her name is Denise. She is a tall woman with gray hair and a voice like gravel. She specializes in abuse cases. She had been skeptical at first, but when I showed her the incident reports, her face went hard. She said, this is a gold mine, but it is also a nightmare. Frank Thorne has deep pockets. He will fight. Are you ready for that? I said, I have been ready for 10 years. Denise said, good, because I am going to need you to testify. I am going to need you to tell a jury what happened to you. Can you do that? I thought about the jury. Strangers in a courtroom, all of them staring at me, all of them judging. I thought about my parents sitting on the other side of the room, watching me describe the worst days of my life. I thought about Frank Thorne in his khaki uniform, smirking. I said, yes, I can do that. Denise said, then let's go to war. But before we could file anything, I had one more thing to do. I had to go back to Utah, not as an investor, as a witness. I had to talk to Chloe again. I had to get her story directly. And I had to do it without Frank knowing. Ethan came with me. We flew to Utah on a Wednesday. We rented a car and drove to the town nearest Summit Quest, a small place called Desert Springs. It had one motel, one diner, and a gas station. We checked into the motel. The rooms smelled like cigarettes and regret. That night, I called a number I had been given by another survivor, a woman named Maria, who had been a guide at Summit Quest 5 years ago. She had quit after she saw a camper break his arm during a restraint, and the other guides refused to call an ambulance. She had been carrying guilt ever since. When I found her on a survivor forum, she agreed to help. Her name was not really Maria. She asked me not to use her real name. She was afraid. I understood. Maria met us in the diner at midnight. She was in her late 20s, with tired eyes and a nervous way of looking over her shoulder. She said, I cannot stay long. If Frank finds out I am talking to you, he will ruin me. I said, Frank is going to be in prison. You do not need to be afraid of him anymore. She said, you do not know him like I do. He has friends. He has money. He has hurt people who tried to cross him. Ethan said, we have evidence. We have incident reports. We have testimony from dozens of survivors. He cannot hurt us. Maria looked at him. She said, you are his brother? Ethan said, yes. Maria said, your parents are on the list of parents who sent kids there. I have seen their names on intake forms. They are not the worst, but they are not innocent either. I said, I know. Maria pulled out a flash drive. She slid it across the table. She said, this has every intake form from the last 8 years. Every parent name, every child diagnosis, every payment record. I stole it the day I quit. I have been waiting for someone to come ask for it. I took the flash drive. My hands were shaking. I said, thank you. You have no idea what this means. Maria said, I know exactly what it means. It means those kids might get justice. That is all I ever wanted. She left. Ethan and I sat in the diner for an hour, not speaking. The flash drive sat on the table between us. It was smaller than my thumb, but it held the keys to everything. The next morning, I went back to Summit Quest. Alone, Ethan waited in the car. I had called Frank the night before and told him I wanted to see the camp again before we signed the investment papers. He agreed. He sounded eager. He had no idea what was coming. The gate was the same. The gravel lot was the same. The heat was the same. Frank met me at the entrance. He was wearing khaki, as always. He smiled. He said, Riley, so good to see you again. I said, Frank. He said, your parents are not with you. I said, not today, just me. We walked the grounds. Frank pointed out more improvements, new water stations, a shade structure over the eating area. He said, we take safety very seriously. I said, I know, I have read the incident reports. Frank stopped walking. He said, what do you mean? I said, I mean the reports you sent me. The ones I asked my cybersecurity friend to crack. The ones that were password protected. The ones that detail restraints, starvation, isolation, and the death of a boy named Caleb. Frank's face went white. He said, those were confidential. You had no right. I said, I had every right. I am a survivor. And I am not alone. I pulled out my phone. I showed him the flash drive. I said, this has every intake form from the last 8 years. Every parent name. Every child. Every payment. I have a lawyer. I have a news outlet. I have a network of survivors. And I have a question for you, Frank. Do you want to go to prison or do you want to make a deal? Frank stared at me, his jaw clenched. He said, you are making a mistake. I have lawyers, I have friends, I will destroy you. I said, you already tried to destroy me. You and my parents. You put me in a desert and you broke me, but you did not break me all the way, because I am still here. And I am going to make sure that no other kid ever goes through what I went through. Not in Utah, not in Montana, not anywhere. Frank took a step toward me. I did not move. I had been afraid of him for 10 years. I was done being afraid. He said, you think you are tough? You think one little girl with a flash drive can take me down? I said, I am not one little girl. I am hundreds. I am thousands. I am every kid you ever hurt. And we are done being quiet. Frank lunged for my phone. I stepped back. He missed. He stumbled. And then he heard it, the sound of engines. Not one, not two, A dozen cars pulling into the gravel lot, doors opening. Footsteps. Ethan had called the police, not the local police who Frank probably paid off, the state police, the FBI. I had filed a tip the night before, anonymous, but detailed, very detailed. Frank looked at me. His face was no longer white, it was red. He said, "You set me up." I said, "No, Frank, I finished you." The agents swarmed the gate. They had warrants. They had been investigating Summit Quest for months, but they did not have enough evidence. Until now, until the flash drive, until Maria, until Chloe. Until me, Frank Thorne was handcuffed and led away. He did not look at me, he did not say another word, but I watched him go. And for the first time in 10 years, I felt something other than anger. I felt peace. The news broke the next day. Every major outlet ran the story. Wilderness therapy camp shut down after abuse allegations. Dozens of survivors come forward. Parents named in lawsuits. My parents' names were on the list. Sarah and David Connors. Page 14, line 32, my mother called me. She was screaming. She said, "How could you? We are your parents. We loved you. We gave you everything." I said, "You gave me away. You sent me to a place where I was abused. You never apologized. You never asked. You just bragged about it at dinner parties. That is not love. That is control." She said, "We are going to lose everything. Our house, our friends, our reputation." I said, "I know." She said, "Do you even care?" I said, "I care about the kids who are still in that place. I care about Chloe. I care about Tasha. I care about Megan. I care about Caleb, who died because your friend Frank Thorne hired monsters to watch children. I care about them more than I care about your house or your friends or your reputation." My father got on the phone. He said, "Riley, we can fix this. We can pay for a lawyer. We can make a deal. We can protect the family name." I said, "The family name is not worth protecting. You made sure of that when you drove away." He was silent for a long time. Then he said, "I am sorry." I said, "I know, but sorry is not enough, not this time." I hung up. My hands were shaking, but I did not cry. I had cried enough. The lawsuits were filed 3 months later. Denise led the charge. She had 37 plaintiffs, survivors ranging in age from 18 to 34. Their stories were different, but they shared the same wounds. Restraints, starvation, isolation, humiliation, and parents who had signed the papers. My parents settled out of court. They paid a large sum. They did not admit guilt. They just paid. Their lawyer said it was a business decision. I knew it was fear. They were afraid of a jury, afraid of the truth coming out in open court. Afraid of me? The money went into the survivor fund, just like I had planned. Ethan helped me set it up. He quit his job at the hospital, not because he had to, because he wanted to. He said, "I spent 10 years saving hearts. Now I want to help save souls." He became the medical director of the fund. He works with survivors to document their injuries, physical and mental. Priya, his wife, supported him. She said, "I married you for better or worse. This is just part of it." Maya is 2 now. She has purple streaks in her hair. Her grandmother hates it. I love it. Chloe, the redhead from the tent, is 17 now. She lives with a foster family in Oregon. She is applying to colleges. She wants to be a lawyer. She wants to do what Denise did. She wants to fight for kids like her. We talk every week. She calls me her big sister. I call her my little warrior. Maria, the former guide, testified against Frank Thorne. She was scared, but she did it anyway. She said, "I cannot undo what I did, but I can try to make it right." Frank was convicted on 42 counts. He is serving 25 years in federal prison. The guides who worked for him, including Carrie, are serving shorter sentences. Some of them pleaded guilty. Some of them blamed Frank. None of them apologized to the kids they hurt. Tasha, the girl who had been raped by her stepfather, is 30 now. She lives in Vermont. She runs a small farm. She raises goats and chickens. She does not talk about the camp. She does not talk about her stepfather. She just lives. Quietly, peacefully, I visited her once. She made me tea. She showed me her goats. She said, "I am not healed, but I am surviving. That is enough for now." Megan, the girl who passed out from push-ups, is a pediatric nurse in Chicago. She works with children who have been abused. She is married. She has 2 kids. She named her daughter Riley. I cried when she told me. Caleb, the boy who died, never got to grow up. His parents were not on the list. They did not send him to Summit Quest. They sent him to a different camp, a similar camp. He died anyway. His story is not mine to tell, but I carry it with me. I carry all of them with me. 6 months after the settlement, I went back to my parents' house. One last time. My mother had stopped returning my calls. My father had stopped returning my emails. They had moved to a smaller house. They had lost most of their friends. My mother's real estate business had dried up. My father's law firm had asked him to retire early. They were not broke, but they were broken. I knocked on the door. My mother answered. She looked older, thinner. Her hair was gray. She did not have the energy to diet anymore. She said, "Riley, I did not expect you." I said, "I know. Can I come in?" She stepped aside. The house was quiet. No candles, no fresh flowers, no pot roast in the oven. My father sat in a recliner in the living room. He was watching golf on a small television. He did not look up. I sat on the couch. My mother sat across from me. For a long time, no one spoke. Finally, I said, "I am not here to fight. I am not here to gloat. I am here to say goodbye." My mother started to cry. My father kept his eyes on the television. I said, "I have spent 10 years being angry at you, and I am still angry. But I am also tired. I am tired of carrying this weight. I am tired of letting what you did define me. I am not forgiving you. I am not forgetting. But I am letting go." My mother said, "We are sorry. We have always been sorry." I said, "I know. But sorry does not undo the past. It just opens the door to a different future. And I want a future where I am not your daughter. Not like this. Not with this history between us. I want to be free." My father finally looked at me. His eyes were wet. He said, "What does that mean?" I said, "It means I am not going to see you anymore. Not for holidays, not for birthdays, not for anything. I am going to live my life. You are going to live yours. Maybe one day, years from now, we can try again. But not now, not yet. I am not ready." My mother reached for my hand. I let her take it. Her fingers were cold. She said, "I love you. I have always loved you." I said, "I know you think that, but love is not just a feeling. Love is action. Love is showing up. Love is not driving away. You did not love me the way I needed to be loved, and I cannot pretend that you did." I stood up. My mother stood too. She hugged me. I let her. It was a sad hug. The kind of hug you give when you know it is the last one. My father did not get up. He just said, "Take care of yourself, Riley." I said, "I will. I always do." I walked out the door. The sun was setting. The air was cold. I got in my car and drove back to Seattle. I did not cry. I did not scream. I just drove. And for the first time in my life, I felt something I had never felt before. I felt free. It has been 1 year since that dinner. I am 26 now. I still work at the same company. I still have the same apartment. I still have purple streaks in my hair, but so much has changed. The Survivor Fund has helped over 200 kids. We pay for therapy. We pay for college. We pay for housing. We pay for lawyers. We are not rich, but we are making a difference. Chloe is in her first year of college. She calls me every Sunday. She is studying political science. She wants to run for office someday. She says she wants to change the laws so that wilderness camps cannot operate without oversight. I believe she will. Ethan and Priya had another baby, a boy. They named him Caleb. I am his godmother. I buy him purple onesies. Priya rolls her eyes. Ethan smiles. Maria, the former guide, started a nonprofit. She helps former camp staff find new careers. She says most of them were just kids themselves. They did not know what they were doing. Some of them were abused too. It does not excuse them, but it explains them. She is trying to break the cycle. Tasha sent me a letter last month. She wrote, "I named one of my goats after you. She is stubborn and purple and she never backs down. Thank you for being brave so that the rest of us could learn to be brave too." Megan sends me pictures of her daughter Riley every year on her birthday. The little girl has purple hair, her mother's idea, her father's nightmare. Megan thinks it is funny. And me, I am still in therapy. I still have nightmares. I still flinch when someone touches my shoulder without warning. I still cannot sleep with the door closed. Some wounds do not heal. They just scar. But scars are not weaknesses. Scars are proof that you survived. I am writing this from my apartment in Seattle. The sun is setting over the water. My tea is warm. My phone is buzzing with emails from new survivors. Kids who just got out of camps like Summit Quest. Kids who are scared and angry and broken. Kids who need someone to tell them that it gets better. I write back to every single one. I say, you are not broken. You are not alone. Purple hair forever, and I mean it, this is Riley Connors. Survivor, sister, godmother, friend, and this is my story, not the end, just the beginning. If you are a parent listening this, please hear me. Your child is not a problem to be fixed. Your child is a person to be loved. Talk to them. Listen to them. Believe them. Do not send them away. Do not let a stranger in khaki teach them discipline with push-ups and starvation. There is no discipline in cruelty. There is only more cruelty. If you are a survivor reading this, please know that you are not alone. There are thousands of us. We are building a network. We are building a future. We are coming for every camp, every program, every so-called therapist who hurts children in the name of healing. You can find us online. Use the code word, Purple Hair Forever. And if you are Frank Thorne, reading this from your prison cell, I hope you remember every single child you hurt. I hope you remember their names. I hope you remember mine, because we remember you, and we are not afraid anymore. My name is Riley Connors. I am 26 years old. I am a survivor of wilderness camp, and this is not the end. This is the beginning.